Am I my emotions? There is something immediate and convincing about emotional experience. When anger arises, the entire body becomes anger. When sadness flows, the whole world appears colored by melancholy. When joy bubbles up, existence itself seems to dance with celebration. In these moments, the emotion is not something we have. We become the emotion completely. But observe what happens when the emotional storm passes. The same person who was consumed by rage an hour ago now sits quietly reading. The consciousness that was entirely sadness this morning now hums with contentment. The being that was overwhelmed by anxiety yesterday now moves with easy confidence. What happened to those emotions that felt so total, so defining, so permanent? Though permanent. This reveals something fascinating about the relationship between awareness and emotional experience. Watch anger as it arises. Notice how it begins as a subtle shift in the body, a tightening in the chest, a heating of the face, a change in breathing rhythm. Then thoughts align themselves with this physical state. This is unfair. This person is wrong. I must do something. The emotion and the story it tells become indistinguishable. But what is aware of this entire process? What observes the physical sensations, notices the thoughts, witnesses the complete emotional takeover? This awareness that perceives anger does not itself seem angry. It remains curiously neutral, watching the emotional drama unfold without being swept away by it. The same awareness that observes anger also observes joy, sadness, fear, excitement, all with the same steady presence. Like a mirror that reflects fire without being burned, or water without being wet, awareness remains essentially unchanged regardless of what emotional content arises within it. But here is where the investigation becomes particularly subtle. The awareness of emotion is not separate from the emotion itself. They are not two different things, but different aspects of the same phenomenon. Consciousness appearing as emotion, emotion appearing in consciousness. Yet most of the time, we completely identify with emotional content. I am angry, rather than anger is arising in awareness. This identification creates a particular kind of suffering, not the pure experience of emotion itself, but the resistance to emotional experience. When we believe we are our emotions, every emotional shift becomes a threat to identity. If I am an angry person, then experiencing peace feels foreign. If I am a sad person, then joy becomes suspicious. If I am an anxious person, then calmness seems unnatural. This identification with emotional states creates a strange project, trying to maintain preferred emotions and eliminate unwanted ones. The mind begins to work like an emotional curator, attempting to create a museum of pleasant feelings while keeping difficult emotions locked in the basement. But emotions, like weather patterns, follow their own natural rhythms. Joy cannot be maintained indefinitely any more than spring can be made permanent. Sadness cannot be eliminated completely any more than winter can be abolished from the calendar. The attempt to control emotional experience often intensifies the very emotions we are trying to escape. Trying not to be angry often generates more anger. Forcing oneself to be happy often produces more sadness. Fighting with fear typically amplifies fear. What happens when we stop trying to be or not be particular emotions and simply allow whatever emotional weather is present to move through awareness naturally? A woman experiences profound grief after loss. Instead of trying to fix the sadness or rush through it, she allows it to be completely present. She discovers that grief, when not resisted, has its own intelligence, its own timing, its own natural completion. The sadness that felt unbearable when fought against becomes workable when met with acceptance. This is not about becoming emotionally passive or indifferent. This is about discovering a different relationship to feeling. From the perspective of awareness, emotions become like waves on an ocean. Sometimes the waves are large and dramatic, sometimes gentle and subtle, sometimes barely perceptible, but the ocean itself remains essentially unchanged regardless of wave activity. This understanding transforms emotional experience completely. We can feel anger without becoming angry people. We can experience sadness without being sad people. We can have anxiety without being anxious people. The emotion arises, peaks, and naturally subsides, while something in us remains steady throughout the entire cycle. This steadiness is not emotional numbness. If anything, it allows for deeper feeling because there is no resistance to whatever arises. Children often demonstrate this natural relationship to emotion. They can cry intensely one moment and laugh joyfully the next, without carrying yesterday's sadness into today's play. They have not yet learned to make emotion into identity, but somewhere in growing up, we begin to solidify emotional patterns into personality. I am an emotional person. I am not good with feelings. I am always anxious. I am naturally happy. These become limiting beliefs about what kinds of emotional experiences we are allowed to have. What if emotions are simply weather patterns in the sky of consciousness? What if we are the sky itself? Vast, open, capable of accommodating any weather without being damaged by it. From this perspective, emotional intelligence becomes less about managing emotions and more about understanding our relationship to them. We can feel deeply without being destabilized by feeling. We can allow the full range of human emotion without making any emotion into our permanent address. The person who realizes they are not their emotions paradoxically often becomes more emotionally available. When there is no threat to identity from feeling, there can be complete openness to whatever emotional experience arises. In this openness, emotions become sources of information rather than sources of identity. Anger might signal boundary violations. Sadness might indicate loss that needs acknowledgement. Fear might point to areas requiring attention. But these emotions are messages, not definitions of self. Can you feel without becoming the feeling? Can you experience emotion without being defined by emotional experience? Can you allow the full spectrum of human feeling while remaining grounded in something that experiences all feeling but is not itself any particular feeling? What is this that feels all emotions but is not emotional? This awareness that experiences every feeling but is not itself a feeling. This presence that remains stable through every emotional storm?